Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the special meeting of the Paso Robles City Council for Wednesday, August the 24th. Mayor Steve Martin speaking. Before we get started, I'd like to read the following. City has returned to hybrid public meetings pursuant to AB 361, which allows for a deviation from the teleconference rules required by the Ralph M. Brown Act. Residents now have the option to attend the meeting in person or to participate remotely. To participate remotely or live stream, you may view the meeting at www.prcity.com/YouTube and call 805-865-7276 to provide public comment via telephone. The phone line will open just prior to the start of the meeting and remain open throughout the meeting to ensure the opportunity to comment on each item heard by the council. Written public comments can be submitted via email to cityclerk@prcity.com prior to 12 noon on the day of the council meeting to be posted as an addendum to the agenda. If submitting written comments in advance of the meeting, please note the agenda item by number or name. City council meetings will be live streamed during the meeting, also available to play later on YouTube by accessing the following link, www.prcity.com/YouTube. With that, I will call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Cannon.
Here.
Councilmember Strong. Councilmember Strong. Mayor Martin.
And I'm present. We anticipate Mr. Strong's presence presently, so we await him. But until that time, we do have a quorum, so we're going to continue on with the Pledge of Allegiance. We invite you to stand as you're able and join in the pledge, led by Councilman Hammond.
Join with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is a special meeting, but we'd like to adhere to our usual decorum as much as we can. So we'd like to invite staff members and anyone in the audience who serves as an advisory committee member to rise, identify themselves, so we can recognize the people who do the work of the city. Starting on my right.
Jessica Ferguson, Acting Deputy City Clerk.
Brian Bell, Administrative Services Director.
Ty Lewis, City Manager.
Isaac Rosen, Assistant City Attorney.
Do we have any staff online tonight?
We do. We have Shauna Veer for IT support, as well as Karen Jackson for IT support.
Thank you very much, and welcome all. For public comment, this is a special meeting, and at special meetings, public comment is reserved just for the item on the agenda tonight. So we have one item on the agenda tonight. There will be time for public comment for that agenda item. That is a discussion item regarding the City Council vacancy and appointment and oath of office, and I would ask the city staff to give us a little report on what we're doing here tonight.
Pardon me, I have a tickle in my throat this evening. Council members, as you're aware, we're here this evening for a special City Council meeting to present to you 4 options as per your request to fill the vacant City Council member seat that Maria Garcia vacated on or about August 4th, 2022. With that in mind, I do have one point of clarity for our meeting too, just for on the record, and the city attorney pointed this out. There is an error on the agenda at the very top. It's the date is Wednesday, August 24th, 2022, not 2020.
Correct.
So we just want to make sure that that's clear. Aside from that, as you're aware, Maria vacated her seat when she moved out of the city. Which opened up a spot on the city council member or vacated seat. We had a meeting, for the city council to consider what their options were, which we presented, which would be to leave the seat vacant. There was repercussions with that. We could wait till the election if that's what council so chose, or you could appoint someone for an interim basis to fill in until December 1st, when Maria's seat would have opened up as part and parcel to her term in office. After our last meeting, the council requested that anybody within the community that was a registered voter and qualified for the position submit an application for the council to consider and to be interviewed. So you have before you tonight four candidates: Mr. Chris Bausch, Keith Boyd, Lars Jorgensen, and Rick Van Sant, who are all here in the audience this evening that have submitted their applications. City Clerk's office was able to verify that they meet the requirements of being a resident of the city, registered voters, and they're at least 18 years old at their time of appointment. To create a level playing field, we've talked to each of the candidates. We have a room set up next door where they can all wait until they're interviewed by council one by one. There aren't any specific questions that you're required to ask. However, our city attorney will advise you of some things you shouldn't ask based upon protected class and other things, but I'll let Mr. Rosen go into that in a minute. But with that, we have present the candidates for you to interview tonight, and it's at your pleasure. We're recommending that you go in alphabetical order, again, so that there's no appearance of impropriety as we move through this process.
Okay. Any questions of staff? Mr. Hammond?
Yeah, Ty, if we then pick someone tonight, will we be swearing them in tonight as well?
You absolutely have that option. We're prepared, the city clerk would be prepared to swear somebody in this evening. That brings up another point that I'd like to clarify. I know there was at least one candidate that had the question about appointment, benefits, pay, those kind of things. If you do swear somebody in or appoint somebody tonight and they return all of their paperwork to our HR department prior to the 1st of the month, then on September 1st, they would qualify for full benefits and pay as the other council members are entitled to. If they get those in after September 1st, then they wouldn't be able to get those benefits until October 1st. And so that's the process for that.
Any other questions?
No.
Mr. Rosen?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just a couple rules of the road for the council members in terms of the interviews this evening, as Ty described. So just a few notes and sort of caution areas to avoid. So state law does not permit questions related to race, color, religion, national origin, ancestry, medical condition, disability, marital status, sex, age, birth date, or the number and or ages of children or dependents. In addition, you may ask the applicant their place of residence. As Ty mentioned, that was a requisite of this process, but it's not permissible to ask whether the applicant owns or rents a home within the city. State law does not permit questions regarding the applicant's general medical condition, state of health, or illnesses. And finally, you may ask the applicant to list job-related organizations, clubs, and professional societies to which the applicant belongs. However, it's not permissible to ask the applicant to list every organization, club, and society to which they belong.
Thank you. I had anticipated that Mr. Strong would arrive. He has not. I'm uncomfortable proceeding without his presence.
I was going to say, would you like to take a quick break
I
and
was
let
going to
me?
suggest that we take 5 minutes, reach out to him, and see if he is indeed going to make it tonight or not.
Sounds
Let's
good.
take a short break. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Welcome to Councilman Strong, who has joined us now. We have all 4 seated councilpersons with us, and in the interest of fairness, I'm going to ask the city manager to repeat the instructions that he gave us, and also for the city attorney to repeat his instructions also.
Sure, just in way of review, so obviously we're here tonight to discuss, or at least the council is, to discuss appointment of the vacated seat left by Maria Garcia. As part of that process, we have 4 applicants here tonight that will be interviewed. We're going to bring them before council in alphabetical order based on what they are here in the staff report this evening. In that vein also, they'll all be in a separate room and we'll bring them in one by one. That way we create an even playing field for questions for each candidate to be able to respond without the benefit of hearing the questions or comments. I think that Mr. Rosen is going to go over one more time, admonition for council members regarding what types of questions you can ask.
Thank you, Ty. And again, just a note for our council sort of rules for the road. There are certain restrictions on asking specific questions of our applicants this evening. State law does not permit questions related to race, color, religion, national origin, ancestry, medical condition, disability, marital status, sex, age, birth date, or the number and/or ages of children or dependents. The council may ask about the applicant's place of residence. As Ty has mentioned previously, that's a prerequisite to serving on the city council, but it is not permissible to ask whether the applicant owns or rents a home within the city. State law does not permit questions regarding the applicant's general medical condition, state of health, or illnesses. And finally, you may ask the applicant to list job-related organizations, clubs, and professional societies to which the applicant belongs. However, it is not appropriate to ask the applicant to list every organization, club, and society to which they belong.
Thank you. And councilors have the opportunity to ask questions of staff. Councilman Strong, any questions? No. One final question for me, the issue of residence. A councilperson has to be a resident of the city. Can we assume that all applicants are residents?
Yeah, the city clerk has gone through and vetted all the applications to ensure that they do reside within the city, that they're a registered voter, and that they're at least 18 years by the time of appointment.
Thank you. So as I indicated before, we're going to be doing things slightly differently this evening. We are going to go to public comment on this issue right now to take comment from the public here and anybody that might be online. When that public comment is closed, then we'll begin our interviews and we will have our discussion after the interviews are complete. I'm assuming the applicants can sit through the public comment before we ask them to vacate.
That's correct.
So at this time, I will open the floor to public comment on this agenda item. We invite you to come forward, give your name so that everyone knows who is speaking, and we'll give you 3 minutes to comment on the process. I see no one rising in the room. I see no one in line online.
That is correct, sir.
So I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the council. And at this time, I will ask all but one of the candidates to go to our green room.
Yes, Mr. Bausch will be the first person to be interviewed in alphabetical order, and we request the others remain in the green room.
Welcome, Mr. Bausch.
Thank you, Mayor Martin.
We
Council.
appreciate your application, your willingness to serve. We try to make this as informal as possible, although I don't see how you can do that with a formal table and a microphone, but we'll try to do it.
Thank you.
Do you have any sort of opening statement you'd like to make?
I do not. I had a candidate statement that I presented. I am looking forward to serving on city council after having been on school board for 10 years. I think it's probably a great time to exit school board. We have more money in the reserve, not quite as much as the city has, but we have accomplished one of the major goals that I ran for 10 years ago, and that was to improve the financial structure of the district. That being done, it's time for a change, and I seek your approval this evening.
Very good. So we'd like to go down the row here and just ask you a few questions, and we'll start with Councilman Gregory.
Hey, Chris. Thank you for, I'm not sure what we're doing here, but I'll answer questions for you. So
Thank you.
Let's ask comfort questions. So are you comfortable if we interview you tonight and select you for the interim council person? Are you comfortable abandoning your position on the school board?
I wouldn't classify it as abandoning my position, but yes, I am comfortable.
So I wanted to make sure that we're not interrupting something that you have in your own goals to accomplish before you move on. So
One of the goals was to have just a good, honest meeting. Last night's meeting was just chock full of excellent debate. Everybody had a chance to speak. We listened to great public comment. That goal has been accomplished, as I mentioned earlier, the financial portion of it. As you know, with the legislator and the governor in California, rules constantly change. Something will change, and I'll say, oh, I wish I would have done something with that. I'm perfectly willing to walk away from that at this point. I've accomplished everything I need to do on the school board.
okay. On affordable housing, what's your solution to it?
Great question.
In under 5 minutes.
If one of the things I did not accomplish last night was to add to an agenda item request for that very subject. I took those remarks. Let me read those to you if I could.
Sure.
I'm going to frame it. Well, let me read the statement and we can talk about it. With so many big issues facing Paso Robles, it's difficult to pick just one. For the sake of brevity, I will start with the high cost of housing due to many problems, including overregulation, land and materials cost, sustained demand, and too little supply. One way to resolve this issue is to increase supply, especially for our own teachers and safety personnel at the city, using surplus land already owned by both the city of Paso Robles and the Paso Robles Joint Unified School District. Construction funding could be provided by existing very low-cost municipal bond programs that are typically paid back using the rents generated by the completed project, thereby reducing the impact on property tax rolls. Offering employee housing will work to attract both school district and municipal employees who otherwise cannot afford to live here. Adding to the supply of rental housing should stabilize escalating rents, helping people who work in Paso to live in Paso. So this is not a new concept. It's been done in cities like Santa Barbara, up north, I think. I believe it's Palo Alto. The bonds are handled by a company called Dale Scott and Associates, who handles the school district's bond. It's a great program, especially if the school district or the city already has property that they're willing to look at. It's also something that would be beneficial for the county, for perhaps Sheriff Ian Parkinson to look at. We tried to do this and talk about it a few years ago. It didn't go very far because the school board, a couple of school board trustees did not want to play landlord. So there are programs to mitigate that now as the program evolves. On 10 acres, depending on how high you wanted to go, you could probably build 100 units, maybe more, depending on what the density would allow. So it would have a significant impact on rents. That's something that the city and the school district could do immediately. Affordable housing elsewhere, that's a long-term discussion.
Okay. I'd like to let some other people ask questions, but I would like to come back and ask a couple. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Hi, how are you doing, Councilman?
Again, we're going to probably see you beyond this point in the interim. You and I are obviously running for the position, and we're unopposed. So we'll see how that goes in November, obviously. But in the interim, I thought originally you were talking, and you've also made testimony that things are finished, I guess, with you, or at least to the point where you can turn from the school board. But I thought originally you said you weren't really wanting to be considered for the interim because you had some unfinished stuff that you're working on.
I believe I said that because I was not confident of some of the school board candidates. Looking at the school board candidates without picking any favorites, I'm confident that the fiscal needs of the district will be looked out for. I was concerned that there were people that perhaps did not have a mindset for the fiscal needs. It was more of a student-based need, and I was concerned about that. But I believe the fiduciary responsibility, especially with our CBO, Brad Pulowski, I'm sure that I'm confident that that's going to continue.
Brad's a good man. I work with him. Yeah. I'll touch on the controversial part. And I think, I've watched a little bit about, your board and some of the controversies, good and bad, that happen out of the school board. How could you characterize some of the things the public have heard coming from the school board? Disharmony of ownership. I mean, how do you see
the dysfunction? Are you talking about the
if you want to call it
dysfunction?
that or whatever. But I'd like to hear your opinion a little bit about how the board has worked in the last few years.
Coming off of a brilliant school superintendent, Kathy McNamara, who led the district through a much larger fiscal crisis than we faced recently, and provided a lot of training, a lot of insight on how to deal with those kinds of issues. When the district was back to a good 10% reserve, she retired, as was appropriate for her. We struggled with the replacement. Without going through a laundry list, I've been asked about, why did you care? Why did you create such a ruckus over overspending, over depleting the reserves, over hiring, too many employees without a need, with the nepotism that was going on, with firing good, qualified, long-term employees? I believe those issues should have not have happened. I was censured for causing and raising those because I would not be quiet about them. Eventually, the grand jury filed a report. Did a very thorough investigation. We're still implementing those changes at the district office and throughout the district. The detractors that I had are no longer on the school board. I think the voters saw through that charade, and as is the democratic process, eliminated them. I don't back away. If I find something that isn't right, I will go through the appropriate channels. I would go to the mayor and say, is this right? Is this how I'm interpreting this? And if he says, oh, don't worry about it, and it's still wrong, I might take it to Mr. Lewis and say, what do you think about this? When something is wrong and we don't speak up to correct it, I have a problem with that. I don't have that kind of axe to grind here at the city. As you know, this is a small town. You guys are extremely transparent, and we appreciate that as voters. That wasn't the case on the school board. So I don't think I'm going to have that issue here.
Good. All I have for right now.
Thank you. Councilman Strong?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris, putting the school board aside, what do you see as the most pressing issues within the city, in your opinion?
I think from my business standpoint, housing is an issue. There are lots of businesses that want to move here. People come to visit Paso Robles. They fall in love with Paso Robles. It's not hard to fall in love. And they think we have land to the east to develop that would be great for industrial sites. We have land at the airport. And then folks look around and they see that if they want to pay their employees a reasonable wage, maybe not a head of household job wage, there's no place for them to live. And they would have to double up or they would have to share housing. That's I think, a limiting factor on our future growth. I think this is California, and I don't think Paso Robles has created that issue. But it's an issue that has to be acknowledged and tackled. I know there's folks that are working on that as we speak. It's a tall order if we want to grow our cities.
If you are appointed to the city council, is there any particular thing that you are particularly interested in achieving on this council?
I'm concerned about the traffic circulation on the east side. I sat on the council's housing constraints and advisory, and I raised those issues. I'm literally a next door neighbor to Almond Acres, and I see the traffic impact that it's had. As residents, we deal with the high school traffic in the morning. We've added just one school, and it's not a large school, but the impact on Niblick is tremendous. And I hope that the growth, anticipated growth on the east side, when that occurs, I'm not sure that there is enough arterial corridor to handle that. I see the need to open up airport north and south in order to accommodate that. I came off of the advisory committee knowing that there was development. I think it's called the Golden Spike, when it'll have an overpass. I think that will alleviate and give residents on the east side another avenue. I think that's important.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Chris, are you aware of the three top priorities of the city as determined through the survey of the community and codified by the council?
Yes. Economic development, vitality, infrastructure, housing, and homelessness.
Okay. I think that the latest incarnation of that is probably public safety, streets, which is infrastructure, and then economic development. Would you like to comment on your evaluation of the city's situation in each one of those areas?
Well, let's start with public safety.
Sure.
I am a vocal proponent of fully funding our both our police force and our fire department. I know it's difficult to attract people to Paso Robles when they find out how much it's going to cost to live here. And there's only so much you can pay someone and keep that within the budget. I think our turnover could be mitigated if we provided an alternative method of housing. I know and I'm sorry, Councilman Strong, the turnover at the school district would certainly be reduced quite a bit if we could provide some kind of affordable housing. Economic development, you and I have talked about the spaceport. I think that is something that really needs to happen. I think the ancillary jobs that will provide will more than offset some of the traffic congestion that will undoubtedly be called. I used to work at the airport. John, I'm not sure how you guys do that every day coming up. That's got to be tough.
Just go early.
Yes, yes. But I am confident that those issues are being handled. I'm not here to fight with anybody and say, hey, we have to do this. I don't have a single issue like that. I participated in the medical marijuana study, and I came away, going into the meeting, I was an ardent opponent to any kind of cannabis in Paso Robles. I came away saying medical marijuana helps a lot of people. I'm still researching that, talking to people. I don't know where I stand on that. But I don't have an axe to grind with anything that the city is doing. And I'm sorry, we talked about housing, we talked about public safety. Remind me of the third one?
I think you've got them all: public safety, streets, economic development. You've talked about traffic circulation. Just a couple of follow-ups, and we'll start over down here again. I think the common theme that you brought up, and I think it's a common theme of discussion with the council on a lot of issues, is this issue of housing. The idea of developing workforce housing, which would accommodate directly, say, school employees or city employees. I'm a little ignorant about preferences regarding rental of apartments, which obviously is very difficult right now in our market, and the people that want home ownership. How do you see the development of housing in Paso Robles proceeding with that type of balance, rental apartments versus home ownership?
So as someone involved in the real estate business, and supply and demand, I've been a wholesale distributor, I've been a retail distributor, it's still supply and demand. We need to address a supply and demand. Whether it's a first-time law enforcement officer or a first-time teacher, they're coming out of college and they're saying, I've got this great job now. How do I make my budget work? And typically, unless they have an inheritance or wealthy parents, they're going to rent a property. Our rental situation in Paso Robles has become difficult. It's a balance of tourism and short-term rentals. As a property rights advocate, people are free to do with what they want to do with their property. I get that. But we have to be cognizant that when there aren't enough homes to rent or enough homes to flip in a good sense, if someone has been they buy a house, they've been in that house for a few years, they've done all the repairs and the upgrades, now it's time to move into the next home. And then the next home a few years after that. That process is basically stalled. And that's a concern of mine. It's stalled because there aren't enough homes out there to move into. They get purchased for the short-term vacation rental. The city council took some great steps to help lessen that impact by limiting the NUP. And when those are grandfathered out, I think that problem will take care of itself. Meanwhile, we have a shortage of rentals. Somebody has to start that building process. To get construction financing is difficult. To get approvals is difficult. The city has property that could be deemed surplus property and could be built upon. There are already architectural plans to that would speed that process along. The same thing with the school district. So all those teachers and city employees that are looking for a rental housing, they would get first shot at those. They're not going to fill up with just city employees or school employees. And then there would be a hierarchy developed on who gets them next. But I think that would eventually, as those units fill up, that would lessen the demand on rental housing. And with the lessening demand, prices will mitigate. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for that to happen.
So beyond the utilization of surplus land, what would you think about other government subsidies, rent control, things like that to provide affordable housing?
Again, I'm a private property advocate. I don't believe in those kinds of subsidies.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gregory.
So while we're on that subject, Chris, so how do you feel about our agreement with Olson and I think with Beechwood about having the first 100 homes go to zip codes from Paso Robles in both those developments? You think it's a good step?
And that's the one that has price controls on it? I don't know
Well,
if they have price controls.
I don't know about price control.
Yeah, exactly.
But the idea would be to step it up.
Yeah, I think those 100 homes will go very, very quickly. And I think that's a great step. And I think that's a good win-win for everybody, the developer, the city, and certainly city residents. As I said earlier, the market has stalled to come up with the next house. Those homes out there, if I haven't been through a model or anything, they haven't been built yet, but they should be nice homes. And they should be attractive, especially for somebody that's trying to, is in a rental now and been saving their money for a down payment. There are some, in spite of the high interest rates, we think 5 or 6% is high interest. Julie and I paid 17% for our first house. So 5% looks really good to me. I think that will help relieve some of that pressure. It's a good program.
So another comment. I don't think I've ever seen two candidates with their campaign managers in the room at the same time at one of these meetings. Marjorie Hammond and your wife behind you, right? So, isn't she your campaign manager?
Julie wants to be my campaign manager. I'm not
All right, so I'll ask you one more.
Maybe Jacob, but not Julie.
So I know you're on the cannabis task force. So can you just give us a quick opinion about recreational marijuana being delivered and brick and mortar? How do you feel about those two?
If I had to make a decision.
Oh, apologies. Council member, I may refrain from that question just to the extent it may come up before the council at a future meeting.
Strike that comment.
Struck.
That was it for me. Thank you.
Councilman Hammond.
Yeah, here's the last round here. I mean, the housing market, everybody's concerned about it, and I'm glad that our council has taken steps to get more houses built. That's really what's going to take, and I think you as a real estate professional know that, when there's not a whole lot of inventory, the oldest homes are yeah, exactly. So I think we're on the right track. I just wish those tracks would start building sooner than later. But it's all has to do with the economy and the market and everything else, which is, again, where issues come when, price of houses is all market driven. And, this council can't dictate, but we live in California too.
I had you may know him, my first real estate broker was a gentleman by the name of Don Benson. And Don Benson likes to tell people there's never a bad time to buy in California, maybe a bad time to sell, but never a bad time to buy. And I think we're living through that moment right now.
Good observation by Don. The other thing I will kind of touch on is, and you're a real estate professional, this council has been conflicted with two of us that, with regard to short-term rentals. Do you own anything regarding that?
I do not.
You can't go there?
Yep.
Well, the reason I'm saying that is that, not that it's going to make a difference with me, really, but now there'll be three of us out instead of, two. So at that point, I think we bring straws and come back and get three people to make a decision. I think that's the way it works. But I was just curious, being a professional, if we've had dealings with that. And,
Mr. Rosen, can I answer that voluntarily, or is that where we're treading on the Brown Act?
I would refrain from answering whether or not.
No, don't answer.
Sorry.
That's fine. I'm just was kind of curious about how that might set on the council if you come on. Again, I don't think I have anything more, Mr. Mayor. Chris is going to be, I think, a good individual to see on the board at some point in time. So appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Councilman Strong?
Yeah, we seem to be stuck on real estate, which is all right, because it affects a lot of our decisions. And as a professional in that field, I understand how you feel about us imposing restrictions upon real estate. How do you feel about the programs that are made available by the federal and state, though, which a developer or a realtor or a home buyer can opt into or out of, such as if they choose to develop a certain percentage of their homes as low or moderate income, that they automatically are allowed to get total forgiveness for certain requirements that the city could put upon them normally, if they choose to do that. It does require that they have a 30-year time limit on that. It has to
So
do
are you
at
talking
least
about
30
imposing those
years.
on the developer or on the property buyer?
No, it goes on whoever takes that option. It would be the developer
deed restriction
originally.
would be in place for 30 years.
Yes.
There's a few of those down in Atascadero. They don't seem to accrue value as quickly as possible or as other surrounding homes. That would be my only concern. If it's a federal program that's not necessarily costing the city, except maybe in terms of some minor loss of property tax revenue because of the lessened increase in value, I would not be opposed to that.
Okay, so you wouldn't have any objection to people having the freedom of choice?
Absolutely not.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Sir.
I have no more. Chris, do you have any closing comments?
I've been in touch with Melissa before she went on vacation. She's a wonderful process of going through this. I've been observing your meetings for a few years now. I think you guys are doing a great job. Thank you very much for your service. I hope to be able to join you on the dais at some point, if not at this point, maybe sometime in the future. I want to see Paso Robles grow. I want to see it grow responsibly. I want to see the citizens look forward to being here in the quality of life that we all seek to provide. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
I'm definitely not trying to make this
that thing
more
doesn't look like it's
confusing.
Yeah,
Stable.
somebody needs to weld that thing down.
Tighten it up or something.
Mr. Mayor, I can go grab the next
Please.
candidate if
We're
you'd like.
ready to go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, try it
Test.
out.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't.
Yeah. It's kind of top heavy there. Maybe if you push the rod further back down. Not so,
They can just hold it if they want to.
yeah.
Test, test,
Yeah, there you go.
test.
Got it.
It can actually go to like full length, that's the problem. I believe we're going to order another one that's like specific.
No latte.
Still working on the latte. Still working. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you tonight?
Doing well.
Excellent. So thank you very much for your interest in doing this job. We really appreciate that. It takes concerned, involved citizens to make this whole thing work, and it's nice to have people that are willing to come forward and make that effort. Do you know all of us up here?
I've met you all in some way, shape, or form over the last few years.
Okay, good. So we're going to ask a few questions, but before we do that, do you have any sort of opening statement you'd like to make?
Sure. I'd like to thank the council for the opportunity to be here this evening. Local government, I think, is the foundation for our society. When you look at what we do as goodwill and doing right for our communities, if you look at our country, everything starts at the local level. We have our state level, our federal level that provide support in different times, but when it really comes down to it, constituents look to their local government for support. They look for answers, they look for guidance, and they look for problems being solved and opportunity being created. So when you think about a local city government opportunity, this position, council, city council, it's significant. And so I'm very pleased to be here tonight to have the opportunity to speak with you. It's a difficult challenge for you, but it's also the appropriate thing to do to vet your candidates appropriately.
Thank you. Well, again, welcome, and we'll start questions with Councilman Hampton.
Mr. Mayor, maybe just for the record, he could state his name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
since-
Yes, please.
For the listening audience.
People listening in can't see you. Please give us your name.
So my name is Keith Boyd.
Thank you, Keith.
At this point in time, I'm going to call you Chief because you've earned it. So, how do you think you could serve this board with your present position in King City and what you do there, which is very important. Can you elaborate how you might be able to bring some tools to the board?
Of course. So I've been serving public safety for 28 years now in various organizations across California and Oregon, starting out in line level, and I now serve as the chief of police in King City, managing a $7 million budget and day-to-day operations of the city when it comes to public safety, and trying to work with other facets of city government, our council, my city manager, and other departments to continue the forward progress of our city and to try to create opportunities that exist.
Could we get you to speak just a little closer to the microphone?
Sure.
Thank you.
Oh, microphones, the joys of microphones. So, when I look at my career, how would I leverage it? Well, a couple things I look at is challenges. My council meets on opposite Tuesdays from this council, so my work council. So conflicts with time and such don't exist. I've looked at the history of the council meetings here versus council meetings there. So when I look at that, I've had a lot of experience weighing in, writing staff reports, evaluating projects for the city, and providing insight. I have a master's degree in public safety leadership, as well as a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and I've participated and graduated from the California Post Command College, which is a futures-based program similar to the FBI National Academy. And in that, I was selected and received the leadership award. But how it all comes together is when you think about, in my role, I'm constantly dealing with the public, and I'm constantly looking at how my organization and my staff are going to serve the public. And my role is to try to be that mediator, that moderator to drive our mission to serve the public. And that's what this job is about, is serving the public and trying to understand their needs. I don't know their needs. I can perceive their needs, but I rely on the community telling me what they're looking for from us, and then I try to work with them to meet those needs.
I'm going to ask Isaac, because you are an employee of another city, is there any conflict on his time off when he's not serving as police chief? I mean, is there going to be any issues if we were to appoint him on this board?
I can't speak to the specific labor considerations that may apply in terms of his city role. I think the main issue we would look at that would be true of any of the applicants is if there's an incompatibility of office between serving another jurisdiction and ours. And that standard generally is if there's going to be a large overlap in terms of duties that may make it hard to be faithful to both organizations simultaneously. It's not a perfect line, but that's sort of the main thing we look at in terms of that doctrine and what that impacts. But I can't speak to the specific sort of labor considerations with.
I would assume you've already vetted them, and I would assume if there's any major flags, you probably would have heard about it by now. So.
Yeah, my research has shown the only big consideration would be PERS, which at that point I would do this voluntarily and seek no compensation or benefits from the city, which would allow the PERS angle to be voided.
Well, I know you've been a resident of Paso Robles for a while, and I appreciate your service with our Elks Lodge. Your service in putting that fire safety together that year or two ago was very impressive, and I appreciate that. Again, I think at this point, Mr. Mayor, I'm good.
Thank you.
Let's go around.
Councilman Strong.
Thank you, and welcome,
Thank
Chief. I'm sorry, I have to call you Chief. You are. And I'm also very good friends with your mayor, so. And that's my concern. Because my concern is how involved your position is with there and requiring your presence in that location. We don't just attend city council meetings. We also have liaison positions and committees that we serve on, many of which meet during the daytime. And I'm wondering how you would handle any of that if...
No, I mean, it's a great question. So when we look at this position, it's a limited short-term appointment of several months pending an election. I don't live in the district that the position is for, so I'm not running for the position. I'm seeking this opportunity because I felt for that limited short term I could be an unbiased, independent party who wasn't involved in seeking the position for the long term to assist the city in that process. Now, taking into consideration collateral duties that board members hold, when I look at my schedule, I have significant leave banks sufficient to cover the time. I have a very strong second in command that could cover my day-to-day operations if I need to take time off. Is there the potential that an exigent emergency could occur? Of course. Can I predict that? No. But I have confidence in my ability to fulfill any additional duties required of me if you selected me to be a member of the board.
Okay, very good. And then my next question would be, what is your perception of the greatest need here in the city, greatest issue that you could assist us with?
You know, I think my greatest asset would be working with the city to work with the struggles involving our unhoused community. And the challenges the city is facing when it comes to addressing issues for the unhoused, and when it comes to public safety, when it also comes to support services and infrastructure to support those services. So I think I've had a considerable amount of engagement and working in that area, and I think I could bring a balanced perspective with foresight to help the city as it addresses issues over the next several months with respect to that area. I look at that as a challenge. You could talk infrastructure, you could talk economic development, but when we talk about our unhoused community, you're talking about a part of society that they're still a part of our society. And there's parts of our society that feel that community is a burden. There's potential criminal issues, but there's other parts of our society that feel that society is a positive. And it's our role as individuals, as leaders, to find the balance, to meet everyone's needs, to ensure everybody has a safe opportunity to succeed. And that's not easy. And the challenge is to bring groups together and find common solutions and try to implement those solutions, to accept when the solution doesn't work and be adaptable to make change.
Very good. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you. Councilman Gregory.
Yeah. Keith, thank you for putting your hat in the ring. So can we expand on that a little bit more? And up in King City, what are you guys doing for the unhoused up there? If you wouldn't mind reviewing that.
So we, the city partner with, through the Home Key program with Shangri-La Industries, and recently closed escrow on a motel in the city that will be converted into a transitional housing facility managed by Shangri-La. And the city has worked with them to facilitate that process, and then on the back end, how we're going to, then as a secondary piece of that, as a secondary piece of that, they're working to purchase and close escrow on another property in the city, another motel, that while the retrofit and renovation of primary facility is being done, we'll be able to start working with our local unhoused population in our, within the city and in the unincorporated areas adjacent to the city to move them into that temporary site 2 while site 1 is being renovated, with the opportunity that all the processing paperwork to get the transitional housing approved for long term is completed while renovation is being done. And then that secondary site, once the primary is done, will then be renovated, demolished and renovated and turned into a long-term mixed retail and senior housing facility. Now, the challenge is how do you encourage people to move from the unhoused environment into that housing? Well, once this project is completed, there'll be sufficient housing to meet our populace in the region, which gives us a little bit of a different perspective of potential enforcement angles and other actions to be used due to Boise versus Martin. It opens up some things, but so then you take the next step is we've liaisoned considerably with our homeless community, our unhoused community, and have been bridging that gap to present what's coming and the opportunities that they'll have, putting them in touch with our social services organizations and such to prepare for that transition. And so far it's been favorable. You know, recently I had a conversation with not a conversation, but an email from an individual from Dorothy's Place, which is a organization out of Salinas. And, you know, they actually want to meet with us and have a further discussion because they're looking at the process we've been using in King City over the last year and a half as a model for community policing, and something they would like to try to take to other entities in the region to show the efforts we've done.
And is Shangri-La a private nonprofit?
They are a private nonprofit.
And where are they based?
They are based out of Los Angeles, I believe, but they have facilities where they've done this up and down California.
So your permanent housing for the unsheltered would be one of those buildings that you
Correct.
purchased? Okay.
It's a converted motel.
And what's your population of your unhoused?
Currently, in our sphere of influence population, we're at 47. Much smaller, but
That's a nice number.
yeah.
As far as your experience, how long have you lived in the city?
I've lived in Paso Robles since July of 2019.
Okay. And do you have any ideas on housing and helping our housing situation in the city? What would you focus on or recommend we look at?
You know, when I moved to Paso Robles in July 19 when the opportunities started to present themselves in King City. And my wife and I spent a considerable amount of time traveling down this way, and we really fell in love with Paso Robles. And we feel fortunate that we got into Paso Robles when we did, because since then the housing market has spiked. The rental market has spiked. And that creates challenges because we're pricing out many of our local residents from the opportunity to purchase homes, the opportunity to rent properties. And so you have to look at how do we address that. You can look at subsidies. You can look at creating more jobs, that bringing higher paying jobs to the community, potentially the future of the spaceport, potentially other developments out that are being considered out on the airport side of the city could bring more jobs to the city that are higher paying. But I think in time, the city's going to have to evaluate as they do their expansion of properties in the city and growth and development. I think we're going to have to look at creating some fair market housing to allow for those that don't make as much money to have an opportunity to buy homes. But I think it's a long-term solution, not just a city issue. I think it's a regional issue that we need to partner with the county to see how we can bring jobs, bring development, and bring money to people to allow people to have opportunity.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. So we've been referring to the gentleman as chief and to his activities in King City. Is it appropriate to ask him what his function in King City is? Could you describe your duties in King City, sir?
My current title is Chief of Police for the City of King Police Department. I oversee the day-to-day operations of the police department and budget planning, crime enforcement planning, crime statistic analysis, and just providing for the day-to-day safety of the community.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So the city has codified 3 major goals. There's lots of stuff going on, but 3 primary things. And those 3 primary things were generated based on input from the community through surveys and other mechanisms. Are you familiar with those priorities?
To be honest with you, I've done some reading, but I did not have time to research them. I believe the infrastructure is one, and I believe the space, potential expansion of the spaceport is another, but I cannot recall the third.
Fine. So I think you've hit on several of them already. One is public safety. One is economic development, and you've spoken to spaceport and other things. And then the third would be streets and maintenance infrastructure. So that is all associated with growth. As the city moves forward now, we're in an interesting situation in appointing somebody to a 3-month seat. That's a pretty tight window. What would you like to accomplish? What would you like to bring to the table? What contribution would you like to make in 90 days if you're selected?
If selected, I think what I'd like to do is to be able to be part of making a difference. I think that's where it starts. I think I've proven myself over my life of being an extremely hard worker, somebody that jumps in and with both hands and does the research. The idea being it is a tight window. So there's going to be decisions that are going to be made. There's projects that are going. There's things that are coming to the council that I don't have, let's say, the background on that I need to get up to speed on. And that's for staff to provide that background documentation, to do the research, to do the reading, and to get educated on. There's limitations on because of the Brown Act for how much I can interact with members of the council. So that's where I interact with the city manager and staff on various things to get up to speed to get the historical background, this historical nature of a project, of an item, so that way we don't get into Brown Act violations and such. So I'm prepared to make a difference. That's the key function. My role is to make sure in this 3 months is to keep the city moving forward, working for the people, and so that it doesn't stall and become stagnant and delay the growth of the city.
Excellent. Other questions, Mr. Hammond?
Yeah, Keith, I'll throw one at you. Putting your residence hats on, then maybe give me your opinion of your professional hat. Your perception of the gangs, drugs, homeless in Paso Robles. What's your first impression?
My perception of the gangs are out there. Okay, one of the challenges we have in this area is we don't have a major, and I say we don't have a major here in this city, a major news media entity. The television station isn't here. We don't have a major daily here. And so you don't get the notoriety and the publication and the news stories that carry. But the reality is gangs are there. And what we want to work for is finding opportunities for alternative paths for kids to keep them from getting into the gangs, whether it be after-school programs, whether it be early interventions with their teachers, police department and government working with local schools to identify, paths for kids, to identify early warning signs to keep kids from going into that path. The other side of it is when you have incidents involving gangs, you have to take a firm approach because you need to mitigate the potential of the long term. When I say the firm approach, one of the things we do is we have a Roads to Success program that we can use as a potential of a diversion program. So, we may not give a warning, we may make an arrest, but then we refer them to a diversion program that allows them to try to work through and, see a different path of life. And if they're successful in that, then we can work with the district attorney's office, has a process where we work through to mitigate that violation depending on the nature of it. Now, they're not, the average, you're driving around, you don't see it. It doesn't necessarily impact the community as a whole, but what it is it's an influence on our youth that then rolls into adulthood and such. And so we have to start at that, impacting those youth to show a positive direction in life. Homeless, my dad spent, who's now passed, my dad worked in social services for 20 plus years after he got out of the Navy and working with social services and aid for individuals in need. And so I grew up listening to different aspects. And so, it's a challenge to provide a solution. First and foremost, people have to want to be a part of the solution. And when you talk about addicts, drugs, gangs, crime prevention, recidivism, the end user has to want to make a difference and change their path. And so when we talk about the unhoused community, it's about creating opportunities that you can place people into to succeed. Now, to do that right, you need to partner with other entities. It can't just be the city. We have to come together as a region. We have to have the county. We have to have our private sector businesses engaged because many times we need to seek jobs. We need to seek opportunity. We need to have, sometimes people are unhoused not because of choice, but because of situation and circumstances. And so it's part of our role is to find a way to give them opportunity to build a positive path and potentially vouchers for shelters and such. So it's a challenge. Drugs, you asked about drugs. I think the drug epidemic, the issues with drugs these days, I think our biggest challenge is the legislature in Sacramento. I think the fact that we've altered a number of our, decriminalized a number of criminal codes in the legislation has impacted our ability to impact drugs. In my career, we used to be able to hold cases and with that, you'd get people into programs. But nowadays, people aren't taking programs as much because the time served element is so minimal. So how do you provide somebody who's an addict or get them to, you have to treat them like a human being and try to just never give up on anybody.
Good. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Strong.
Well, I'm going to continue along that vein. trying to recall my quarter of a century association with the California Youth Authority. As I recall, then the big problem was 12 versus 13. And San Luis Obispo County was kind of the little Switzerland for the gangs. However, when we had the Youth Authority facility here, we had a lot of families that also moved into the area so they could visit their family members better. And that brought us more actual contact with the leadership of both 12 and 13. With that gone, and it's been gone for some years now, well over a decade, that has diminished tremendously. Do you think we're now becoming an area of competition between the two for control?
Personally, I believe that we sit in the middle of the state of California, and we sit on the line of red and blue. And there's a challenge, in the gang world of control, and it's who's going to be the biggest, baddest, and worst. And right now, at least in the city I work in, we've seen a significant rise in violent crime associated with gangs. And it's blue and red contesting for domination. And so we're in that location. One of the benefits of Paso Robles is, when you think about it, we're kind of on an island here in North County, Paso Robles and such. From Salinas to here, it's roughly 90 miles. And from South Monterey County to the Cuesta Grade, you're roughly looking at about 120,000 people. And so you have to think about what is the influx of people coming. A lot of people come through and come in. We get people coming in on the weekends. We have tourists. We're a travel destination. So we have a lot of influx. And so right now we may not be dealing with a lot that's our natural residents, but we're dealing with a lot of people coming and going. We have multiple prisons to the north. We have prisons to the south. Your context about families visiting, it is viable. But at the same time, it's about, the public safety side, it's about addressing the issue when you can address the issue in a legal and lawful manner. And that's the aspect is we in public safety have to ensure we don't turn a blind eye, and that we keep our foot on the pedal to be aware of it, because we have an obligation to the community to provide them an opportunity to have a safe life, to have economic development, to have a business, to feel safe in their homes, to feel safe in their community. And I think that, and when I say this, it's not lost. Personally, I think we're winning. And that's why I think the tension is there, is because we're winning the challenge and creating opportunities for kids. We're creating opportunities for economic development. And that's giving people challenges of, do I go with the gang or can I get out?
And I'm well aware that we've had murders even here in our city when some gang member decided maybe he wanted to be in the other gang. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't last very long. Do you see anything more we could do here than we're doing?
No, I think the police department does a very good job servicing this community. In my personal perceptions of them and when I've seen them out in the community, they're engaging, they're visible, they're concerned, and they're committed. And so when I look at that and I see them, I'm out in the community, many of them don't know who I am, but I see what they're doing, and I see that they're working hard and trying to do the right thing. So when you talk about what can we do here, I think it's about ensuring that we fund appropriately the police department, that it has the resources it needs to provide for those services, whether it be for, if needed, gang enforcement, the CAT team, various things. But it's also at the same time, we have to consider our social service programs to ensure we're co-funding those. And that's that balance. We're not the federal government, the ability to print money. We have a budget that we have to live with. And so you have to find a way to find the balance of the social services programs, engaging with private sector partners, and then using the public resources, public safety resources appropriately to find balance.
Thank you.
Mr. Gregory.
Yeah, I'm going to call you Keith.
That's fine.
I'd like to talk a little bit about, so what are you doing as a city to get mental health assistance and addiction counselors? How are you funding that? What are you guys doing?
It's a constant fight, to be honest. I will tell you that South Monterey County is underrepresented when it comes to services in Monterey County. We have a very strong partnership with our local hospital in King City, and we've worked very hard over the last, my city manager and I, as a part of that, worked very hard with those social service organizations, or those organizations that are bringing services, to try to pre-plan that. There are, the Salinas Valley Medical Group brings, a bus down for services. We have a very large Latino population, a very large population that's not necessarily favorable of government or people that are going to engage government. So we really work hard to get out of the community, out of the office, out to the community to provide those services or encourage them where they're at. We're trying to work with the county to increase mental health services in South Monterey County, but we're not there. We're not getting there. We're trying to, we've had discussions as the 4 South County cities to partner to independently provide mental health practitioners to serve South County, and we just haven't been able to get there yet. It's the constant battle of, well, that doesn't meet what my city needs, or that doesn't meet what, and so you have to try to keep negotiating. We haven't even scratched the surface on what we need to do for the mental health. The other side of it, though, is when we have our own homeless liaison officers who we provided additional training in crisis intervention. We try to, really work with our local unhoused population, identify, is this a crisis situation versus a crime? Is this something that we can try to facilitate, whether it be a transportation to a crisis center for immediate treatment, or whether it be a healthcare facility for a medical issue, or is it just simply, they need a lunch and getting them some food? And so it's my biggest thing in my 28 years is doing public safety and really evolving to a chief is making sure the new people who start in this business, all of these people that we're leading, that they understand why we're here. And it's very easy to lose sight that we're here to serve, that we're here to help people. And if we are, and many times people think I just get to drive, and I say cops, get to drive fast, carry a gun, do all that stuff, but no, it's really about serving. And when we're talking about serving, it's about making sure we're doing for others and trying to find that positive. So I wish we could do more, but where we're at right now is we focus our efforts on the transitional housing, and our belief as part of that program in working with Shangri-La is we're going to get the mental health services embedded in that facility when it comes. So that's been our goal now, is focusing on that.
So with some of that funding, you were able to add some officers that are trained to work with in-house?
We have not added anybody. I will say that we've been successful to become fully staffed, but what we've done is I've invested heavily with my budget in crisis training. And so there's a considerable amount of training in the state of California for crisis intervention that are programs out there to certify individuals crisis intervention trained. But beyond that, I really value sending people to that training, because we need to be able to talk to people. We need to understand people. We need to be able to try to identify those challenges when they're occurring and fund those programs. So that's my big push, is making sure all of my staff have that advanced training beyond what you get in the basics in the academy. And then on top of that, they go out and interact with our homeless community to make sure that we don't want them to be afraid of the police. We want them to understand we're just people just like them. There's a time we may have to enforce the law, but we're also just there to help them too.
Thank you.
So you've hit a real live wire with mental health services. That's another common thread that runs through a lot of the issues that everyone faces today. Just recently, this council has reached out to Mayor LaBarre in King City and other entities in Monterey County to establish a memorandum of understanding to bind our communities together to pursue infrastructure improvements that serve us all. We make a big deal in our area about regional economic development, and rightfully so, because the more people you have involved in an effort, the more leverage you have to get the end achieved. Do you feel like a similar effort on a regional basis to expand mental health facilities and services would significantly benefit some of the societal problems that we're experiencing right now?
I think it would, without a doubt. Everything, as I said in the beginning, it's about getting the regional partners together. But sometimes some of the issues I face being in South Monterey County, to me, my regional partner is San Luis Obispo County. You know, depending on what the nature is, sometimes some issues are me are closer to get services in San Luis Obispo County and Paso Robles, or and I've had issues where we've used services down here because we were able to get to those services in a more rapid nature. There's a limited amount of practitioners. It's an advanced program where people have to spend a considerable amount of time going to school, getting their internships, getting their hours before they're certified. Just like policing, just like many jobs, it's getting people into the jobs. And the regional effort by partnering San Luis Obispo County, South Monterey County, it's to me, it's about providing resources, but it's also about providing opportunity and encouragement that people to choose that as a profession, to create opportunities, scholarships, or people to be able to go to university to get that degree, and we're going to sponsor them to go through that, and they're going to spend their internship time and their service time back in this region. You know, until we have sufficient people to provide the services, we're always going to be behind. We're always going to be chasing the goal. Now, what is sufficient services? I think you always have to raise the bar, but that depends on your economic opportunity. If you have the budget and you have the opportunity to raise it a little bit and make the bar higher, then you should. You should never be satisfied with the bar. We're never doing enough. We can always do more. And the day we think we've done enough is the day we should probably find a new profession.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions from council?
No, just only one comment.
Mr. Strong.
I think you're doing a great job raising your perception of the whole state.
He is a very passionate individual, and I feel fortunate to have him in our community.
You are.
Do you have any closing statement for us?
You know, I have a very limited closing statement. Again, I'm very pleased to be here. I'm proud to have this opportunity in looking at doing my own looking at the applicants' applications. I'll just use it as I'm the junior tenured resident of Paso Robles, I would suspect. And I look at that as, you know, I think of all four of us that are here participating tonight, I think we're all here because we care. We want to give back, and we want the community to succeed. You know, and the way I look at it is for me, I'm kind of an independent steward for just a period of time to allow the natural election to occur and then that process to occur in time. I would be excited to perform this role, but I also understand if the council chooses to go another direction. I respect that, and again, I appreciate the time, and then I would wish who you select the best of luck, because they have a tall task ahead.
Well, Chief Boyd, it is impressive, considering the service that you do to the community of King City, that you are motivated and have the desire to serve this community also. And so that is very commendable. We thank you very much for being involved and for coming forward and sharing your time with us tonight and offering to serve the community. We look forward to working with you in any capacity in the future. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Appreciate your time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Service. You want to continue on or take a break? Good?
I'm good.
Okay, we're going to continue on.
Yep. Yeah. You nailed it.
Zero.
Yeah. I was going to say, his city's
Refreshments, water, anything? Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you this evening?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
Thank you for being with us. Do you know everybody up here?
I know a lot of people up there.
Okay, well, anybody you don't, here we are.
Okay.
So, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having
We
me.
appreciate you taking the time and your interest in the position. What we'd like to do is offer you the opportunity to give any opening statement you might have. We're going to have a little conversation, and after that, you can give us a closing statement, and we'll try to answer any questions you might have. So,
Right on.
any opening remarks?
So I would like to say this, having thought about why I was going to be here and so forth, and I want to say that.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could we get your name just for the record for
yes.
those?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Lars Jorgensen.
Thank you.
And I have been blessed with being able to live here in this community for about 13 years, business owner for all of that time. And the community has been great to me, welcomed me in I came up from Santa Maria and been in the car business my whole life. But I truly want to serve and give back to the community and give back to my city, which is Paso Robles. And when I saw that opportunity present itself, so if you're asking why a car guy would be sitting in front of you, that's truly my desire. And if I can be able to do that and pay forward all the wonderful blessings that have been given to me through the city.
Thank you, sir.
And that's why I'm
Appreciate that. We're going to start off our questions tonight with Councilman Strong.
Thank you. Jorgensen, please add.
Thank you.
You've been here some time, obviously, and you've been observing the city as a citizen. What do you see as our biggest issue that you could be helpful with?
Not knowing enough about all of the concerns, because I don't know that all of those concerns are shared to where I would know about them. But I would say, when I looked at the goals that the city had for the last 18 months or for that 2-year period, right? I would say the area that I think on there that probably needs or I see it as being one of the biggest concerns would be the housing, the available housing, and the homeless issue that faces all of us. And the other things that are listed on there, as far as the goals go, to me, those goals were set forth for a reason, and I would want to be a part of achieving those goals, To me, a goal isn't a good intention. A goal is a non-negotiable, and we want to get those done. So if you ask me if I saw every single one of those things, I don't know that I could answer that question specifically, but what I see is what our goals are and what we want to accomplish. Those would be the things that I would want to be involved with and see them through.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Gregory?
Well, Lars, we appreciate you being here. Thank you. So, excuse me. So on affordable housing, do you have any ideas off the cuff on what you would do in the housing world as far as, I know you're in business providing vehicles, but
Affordable vehicles?
affordable vehicles. You've been there, short on supply, long on sales. So from your perspective, though, where would you come from on affordable housing? How would you approach that?
Well, the need that we have for labor in town and being a business owner, trying to find people that can better themselves, come get a job, work, and it's very difficult to find that. And that's because we probably don't have the housing available to someone who can live, even though minimum wage is at $15, $16 an hour. We still are going to have to, we're going to have to find a way to house these people close by. And the cost of fuel, you're not getting people that are willing to drive in from some of the outer areas. But I would think between all of us, we could come up with a plan that could find an area within the city that would allow for that types of building and allow for the diversity so that it isn't just one part of the community is living here and one part of the community is living there. I think there's got to be a way that all of us could come up with a plan that says this is an area that has room for the growth, and this is the area that can not only manage the growth from whether it be traffic or what have you, but manage the growth from services as well. And when I look out towards the airport and I look out towards some of the other areas where it seems to me we've got a lot of property that could be utilized for that. And then if we had the right strategy to bring in the people that are going to build these homes and then be able to house the people that are going to work and live within our town.
And, from as a citizen's perspective, how do you feel about our public safety with police and fire in our city? How are we doing, and are there some improvements you'd like to recommend?
Well, it's funny you would ask me that because I had that conversation with Jonathan the other day, and we were talking about how many calls and the amount of demand that is on the system. So I think if you're going to view the system and you're going to say, okay, well, this has got to change and this has got to change, we've got to look at what is our capable of capacity. What do we have on the shelf that we can do? I am not for at all to take away from any of what we have going on in our in any aspect, whether it be police or whether it be fire. But I think we're going to hit a point where we're capable of this, but the demand might be greater than that. And we're going to have to fill that. Now I understand we have another fire station coming on, but my answer to that would be we have to continue to fund that, and we need to continue to grow our capacity. Because if our city's going to grow and we're going to bring and develop more housing and develop more jobs and have people here, we've got to care for them at the same time.
Yeah. Well, we do have the J20 funds that are helping a lot. So
I didn't hear what you said.
We have the J20 funds that are helping a lot in that regard. But someday we have to figure that out. But good. Well, thank you. That's good. Good answer.
Councilman Hammond?
All right, Lars, thanks for applying and willing to sit on the board. You know, with your capacity as I'm going to say used car dealership, maybe you wouldn't be the first, by the way, on our council. But lately, because you guys don't have new cars, a whole lot of new cars anyway, you're selling what you can. So I appreciate that because, you know, that is a big impact for our sales tax too. You've done a lot for our city. But with regard to budgets and finances, and, you know, it's been pretty much a solid mantra with our councils that we live within our means. Right. How are you, you know, as a business owner, having to make the COVID work? I mean, are there things that you've done to tighten the belt? And then give us a little idea of how you came through, or at least your company has come through, and how you managed that whole situation.
John, I'll tell you, when COVID hit, and for those of you that don't know, we had just redone our whole building. And we had spent quite a bit of money on that. And when COVID hit, we had just paid the last check and paid off that amount of work that we had done. And believe me, there was a point there I was ready to jump off the top of the building. I was very concerned. But what we did do is we held on to our people, as many as the people that wanted to stay. And some of the people elected to go home, and we had to deal with that the way it was. However, what we were able to do, and again, you know, you talk about having a budget, we got to live within our means. I don't have anybody dropping off a check at my door at the end of the month that says, here, this will cover everything that you didn't get. No, we've got to make that work. And again, we were blessed with the community supporting us and continuing to support us. And we were able to keep probably we slimmed maybe into the upper 20s as far as employees go, and we peak out at about 36 to say just under 40. And for those that wanted to stay, we made work, we had work, and but did we have to call an audible during that? Oh yeah, for sure. But we were able to get through it, and we've gotten through it, and we're stronger for it. The business itself has changed dramatically in a very short period of time, but we have been able to adjust to that. Our annual sales have actually grown. We're a little north of 30 million a year. And
Yeah, well, again, I'm glad you're still here.
thanks.
You know, we
Me
made
too.
a council decision, with our business to do what it takes. Because you guys fail, we fail, basically. So I appreciate what you did, through this whole period of time. And I really don't have much more. I was wondering, you do, as far as the position here, you do have enough time to do it, obviously. And if we have a committee assignments and such, you might be able to do that as well. Business is business, and we got to take care of both sometimes, but also take care of the city's business as well. Do you have any issues?
I would commit to that time, and
Yeah.
I'm a guy that when I commit to something, I'm going to see it through. Again, I don't have good intentions. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that I had something to offer for all of us, and I certainly wouldn't be here if I wasn't committed to the time, nor if I was not committed to the city to do the job.
Okay. Thank you, Lars.
If we could return just a moment to the economic development issue. One of the things that many people bring up is we need more and different jobs in the community. Any ideas on how we can do that?
I believe this. I believe that if the labor is available, the businesses are going to grow. The businesses want to grow. And if there is labor out there that is available, I think the businesses are going to, I can't think of a business I've walked into, Mayor, that doesn't have a sign in the window saying they're hiring. Everybody's looking for people right now, us included. And, so to answer your question, I would say this. I would say that the business is there. The climate, I think, is changing a little bit right now, and we're seeing a little bit of a tipping a little bit in our business. But how would we go about growing the businesses and bringing more businesses in? We got to have the labor that's going to be able to accommodate that business. People aren't going to open up a storefront if they can't get the people in there to run it. And again, if we go back to the housing question that I believe that you asked me of, if we had that answer, and I believe that answer is there, we can accommodate that.
So one common recommendation has been that the city find land and basically donate it for building affordable housing, which in itself is kind of a government subsidy. How do you feel about subsidization of housing?
I would have to look at what all the options are. I would have to see if that is the best way to handle it, then we got to look at it. If it's not the best way to handle it, and I don't know that I'm convinced that the city giving up property is the right way to do it, I don't know. But if I was convinced that that's the way we needed to go, then I'd have to get good with it. If it is not the only way to go and there's other options out there, then I think we got to look at all of them and make sure that as a group we pick the one that's going to best represent what our goals are and what direction we want to go.
Very good. Councilman Strong.
Thank you. Speaking of options and your business, what about the infrastructure for roads, streets, highways at Paso?
So I came to Paso in the later 80s, and we were a much smaller town then. I haven't lived up here during all that time, but I had a business in town for a few years, and then now I've been back here for 13. My concern for that, if you're asking what my thoughts are on, I know this, once you allow a street to erode to a certain degree, the cost to repair it is you got to dig it all out and you got to start all over again. That can't be the cheapest way to go about it. I don't know a lot about asphalt, but I just put in a bunch of it at my dealership, and that was a lot of money. And you got to care for it. and you got to have a plan to sustain that. And I don't know if right now not caring for that property is going to pay us dividends in the future. I would say it won't. So we'd have to make that a priority at some level.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Gregory?
Couple questions. So I guess you'd be in favor of refunding the police department, right?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. Never know how to refund that way, but so for economic development on the spaceport, how do you feel about that?
So I believe any opportunity we get to bring in those types of jobs, and I've listened to Paul talk on many different occasions on that. It sounds to me, based on what I know, that the jobs that would come along with that would be higher paying jobs. And if we're the only one, I understand there's not another one of these in the western region of the United States. Why wouldn't we embrace that? If we have the capability at the airport to have that, I think we should absolutely embrace it.
So for an economic model with the spaceport, we bring in higher paying jobs, head of household jobs. You think that'll naturally trickle down and help fill in the ranks of more affordable housing and more staff at a lesser refined level?
I think as we lay our foundation, Steve, we got to lay the foundation and then just continue to work up from there. And I believe that could be a strong part of our community. And do I believe that would filter down to, yeah, I absolutely believe that.
Well, thank you very much for coming in, Lars. Thanks for the question.
Mr. Hammond?
Just last comment. I mean, as far as Paso, we never did defund our police. I mean, quite the contrary. Matter of fact, the trouble we have is that we wish we had more money to pay our emergency service workers and everyone else that works for the city. The problem is that we just, we also have a lot of other people tugging at that rope as well, on the streets especially. So, again, I have nothing more for Lars. I think he'd be a great candidate.
Any further questions? I have no more. Do you have any comments for us?
No, thanks for having me tonight.
Thank you so much for being here. We realize what an investment of time it is just to go through this process, and that you would be willing to do that speaks so well of you. Thank you for caring for the community.
Yep. And I'd like to say thanks for all the sales tax.
Yeah, there we go. Keep it coming.
So, Steve, should we take a break? Is it okay to take 5 minutes?
Break?
Want to do it? The last.
Ty, we're going to take a short break. We'll call the meeting back to order, and we have one more applicant to interview this evening. And before us, I'm going to remember to say it this time, Mr. Rick Van Sant, welcome.
Thank you very much.
And we are very happy to see you tonight and very glad that you're interested in this position. And what we'd like to do is offer you the opportunity to give us a little opening statement, then we're going to ask some questions and then close it off. So anything you'd like to begin with?
Well, I think I'd begin by saying, number one, thank you for the opportunity to come in. This is kind of, certainly, I'm sure, a bit unique to be looking for an interim for a few months. For me, it's just, it's an opportunity, it's a great learning opportunity. Moved to Paso a couple of years ago, and after finally reconciling any number of affairs that come with retirement and movement, I have both time, interest, and energy in becoming a much more contributing part of the community. I know you're not allowed to ask certain kinds of questions, but I'd like to volunteer a little information in the sense that I was raised biculturally and bilingually. So born in Panama, raised in Mexico City primarily. So I speak Spanish as a first language as well as English, and culturally feel I'm as much part of the kind of Latinx world as I am the North American world. So I bring that in part to the table as a unique, perhaps, attribute in talking with you all. But have somewhat of a varied background, global background, tend to function from the old statement about, think globally, act locally, and very much would like to act locally. Have a bit of economic development experience as well as educational experience, of course, as a primary thing. And here to offer whatever means and service that I can to the community, whether it's as an interim member of the City Council or some other role within this community. I am a strong believer in Robert Greenleaf's version of servant leadership, and I just look for the opportunity to serve. So I guess that would be my opening statement.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
We're going to start off with Councilman Gregory.
Well, thank you very much for throwing your hat in the ring. So in your experiences, you have a very varied experience. Were your positions all in English or Spanish and in English?
No, so I have worked in multiple countries. I led USAID's educational reconstruction project in El Salvador at the end of their 14-year civil war. So that was all functioning in Spanish. Lived and worked in Dubai and Abu Dhabi for a total of 8 years. That was mostly in English. My Arabic is not up to professional standards, that's for sure. But in multicultural, if not multilingual environments. I just recently returned from actually spending multiple months in Mexico in the state of Guanajuato as a volunteer helping a foundation down there that was a partner related to my last job prepare for a significant transition in their organization, doing SWOT analysis, strategic planning, financial programming, working with the board of directors on some training issues.
So you could teach us all a thing or two, huh? Just go ahead.
I would hesitate to come in with any pretense of teaching anybody, but one of my expertises is I do independent and training in intercultural competency for organizations, governments, people who need to be able to make decisions not related to a specific culture, but from a culturally competent perspective.
So in your tenure all over the world, did you ever get involved in any community projects at the city, small town city level?
Not in the sense of serving the city or the small town directly. Now, in the last role as executive director of Go Global NC, it was a statewide public-private partnership whose goal was to help the state become more globally connected and globally competent. A lot of that was economic development. And that involved working with individual smaller communities to support their efforts. Now, that help came in the form of advising and working with their economic development offices, their city councils, their municipal governments, both with training in sense of being more culturally competent, but also making and helping and arranging those connections and contacts so that their people had the right connections that could become more competent. So I've worked with probably a dozen small communities from that perspective, but not in that sense of being part of their economic development office or directly.
And what is your primary interest in volunteering your time for the city to sit on the council? You feel you could, is there anything that you want to pursue or see that we could improve or?
Well, in all honesty, I think somebody coming into this role for the next 3 to 4 months is perhaps it's not the best time to bring one's own agenda on such a limited basis. So I look at it as, one, it would be a great learning opportunity. Two, I have a strong desire to serve the city and the community, whether it's in this role or others. But I do, I would hope that my experience background in terms of being a kind of bicultural and bilingual might be of use to the city council with a growing population of Hispanic origin individuals and living in this community.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Hammond.
Dr. D. So it looks like a very impressive resume, by the way, and it looks like a lot of academia with regard to education and where you've applied that around the world.
Yes, sir.
It sounds like what I'm hearing is that your highest value here for the council would be in making the bridge between maybe the Hispanic community and the poor. Do you see any issues currently, just in your observation, in Paso Robles with that connection?
Yeah, I think, so my layperson's observation, right, in a couple of years here, is that things are pretty segregated here. If we take a look at simply businesses and people's involvement in what you see at community events, obviously this is a strongly oriented wine and tourism kind of area. I think we see the normal kind of economic disparities and the normal kind of segregation of engagement that's not unusual nor unexpected. And that happens both directions, right? It is not one group excluding another group. It is by definition often they find more comfort in the familiar, which means that overcoming that requires very intentional and direct kind of approaches and action on the part of the majority population, if you will. So I don't see things happening to separate or segregate here with any intention. I see it as the natural occurrence of the way cultures live together. But I also am not sure I'm seeing what I might hope to see in terms of intentionality of really trying to bring them together. And I don't necessarily have real specific examples to give you. That's more of a gestalt feeling.
Yeah, that's why I was looking, just your observation, your opinion, what you've seen, what you feel like. I'm curious, somebody from traveled around the world, well, how did you come to Paso Robles?
Chasing children.
Really?
So it turned out that I have two daughters, both in their early 30s, one married, and it came to pass. So I retired 2 weeks before the world closed with the pandemic, and that rather changed plans as it did for the entire rest of the world. And at that time, both daughters had come from different parts of living around the world and lived in North Carolina. And we all found that, surprisingly enough, at this age, we all liked each other still as a family. And within very short order, one daughter's husband got an offer from Google just up the street here, and at the Google headquarters. And 3 weeks after that, a headhunter got hold of my other daughter from Apple. And so they both ended up with job offers and decided that they were making them offers they couldn't refuse, and that they would move to Silicon Valley. And Mom and Dad looked around and said, well, we're hoping they'll give us grandchildren sometime. It's not happening, but we're hoping.
Yeah.
And so why don't we follow them to California? So we started looking, and of course, not being trillionaires, living in the Bay Area was not an option. So we started looking for something that fit us better, and learned about Paso Robles. And so many beautiful things here. Your tourism department sold us with I think when my wife saw the video of the horse on the beach, we were done. That was kind of, we're moving there. But the other part that brought us here actually is, and I don't know if you happen to be familiar with it, but there is something called co-housing, which is a Danish concept. And you happen to have Oak Creek Commons here up on Nicholas Street. And we had made a decision long ago that when we kind of bought our final place and decided that was ground zero when we were going to stay there, that we wanted it to be in a co-housing situation. And it just so happened that something became available right at the time we were looking, and Oak Creek Commons sounded like such a lovely place, and we were enchanted with Paso Robles, and just the right distance from daughters, right? Nobody's dropping in on each other, but accessible 2.5 hours away. And so it just all was perfect. Everything unfolded. The house sold in a heartbeat in Raleigh, North Carolina. We bought directly from the owners here, and it all just fell into place. So I'm delighted to be here.
Welcome to Paso Robles.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Strong.
Well, welcome.
Well, thank you.
I'm impressed already, just overall. We have a lot of similarities. We share the same first name,
Well, yeah.
but I use the front part of it, you use the back part of it.
Well, that was my dad's fault. He was Fred. They didn't want two Freds in the family, so they stuck me with Fred. So,
And then at Purdue, because you were so multilingual, did you have anything to do with the language lab there?
I did not.
Okay, so you're not aware of that much at all. It was the model, the whole country back then, which was one of my fields.
I'm certainly aware of it, and there was
It's great life.
peripherally part of life and education and awareness, but
Right.
being a native language speaker, I was.
So you have so much to offer. I mean, across the board. That this is almost surprising in some ways. But I can see the learning from your point of view, but I think you could do a lot more teaching than learning, very frankly, for our whole community, our whole city. So I'm wondering, and as you said, it's silly for 3 months to come in with your own agenda for anything. I'm wondering how well you're going to fit, honestly.
Right. I'm not sure I have an answer for that. This was an opportunity that presented itself. It looked like an interesting, whether I was your choice or not, this experience and this opportunity to engage with and talk to is kind of the first foray into connecting with the community and those that help drive the leadership and the service of the community. So I'm not entirely wedded or vested, if you will, that, oh my gosh, this is exactly, but this was a doorway that presented itself.
And I'll be honest, I'm not asking the typical questions I ask applicants for something like this at all. Because in listening to you and looking at your background, I can see so many places in the city that you would be really a great fit, and things you could do with and for us and learn at the same time. I'm hoping that we will have a long-term relationship for many years in many ways.
I would like that very much.
And really, I don't have any questions at this point. Thank you.
So it's a short window of service, about 3 months. It sounds like you're looking at this as an exploratory step to how you could become involved in the community and fit in a service capacity.
Yes, sir.
Is that basically your goal for the
Yes.
first 3 months?
Exactly.
Have you had the opportunity or taken the opportunity to review or at least take notice of the primary goals of the city right now?
I have.
Could you comment on your feelings about those?
Well, I think they're extremely well balanced. I think a lot of good hard work. So number one, I'm impressed with the document. I mean, it's a, you know, the published document is a fairly brief one by nature, you know, kind of 4-pager. But I do, if I were thinking about what I've learned about this community, this town, you know, my concern, a concern that existed before I actually came across that document, which was fairly recent, was that being a town that is primarily economically focused on tourism has its own set of problems, right? And part of that is wage division, types of jobs and roles, high cost of living, and this is not unique to Paso Robles, but many places suffer from this. You know, so where do your teachers and your nurses and your police officers, where do your laborers and contractors and such live? And at what point does this become kind of unstable around just depending on this kind of tourism industry? And I think with a significant measure of relief, looking at that document with your goals, indicated to me that you're very clearly aware of those issues and taking active steps to try to prepare for the next period of time to anchor this community more strongly in living wage occupations, develop businesses that are highly sustainable in today's market, and can weather the upturns and downturns of a volatile, in a sense, luxury market, right? I mean, $60 bottles of wine are kind of a luxury product, and we're fortunate that the economy right now affords people that luxury, but we also know, and many of us have lived through experiences where that's the lines at the gas station belie too many people being able to afford those kinds of luxuries. So I see lots of strong potential here from my cheap seats in the balcony, if you will. But I was gratefully enlightened to see what I thought was an extremely well-balanced portfolio approach to that.
So have you done any skull work on how we might diversify and make the economy more resilient locally here?
There are probably some pop-up ideas that I hate to invest too much in, because those are the kinds of things that I would need a lot more time and discussions. I had one brief conversation with Paul Sloan today, in fact, which was a lot of fun, you know, sharing. We decided we do have to drink some beer and trade stories about Tahiti and Dubai, you know, but I think that I do not know enough to venture any kind of meaningful opinion. One of the things that has, because there's been so much in the news, of course, is with people working remotely, a brand new sense of geographic movement has emerged across this country, where people are not bound by location of jobs, but can make choices they've never been able to before, because you went where the job was, right? Well, today with so much online, you can choose so many places. And I wondered if you had seen an impact here of virtual workers making choices to live in the Paso Robles area. I mean, it's a town that comes up at least once a year in the best of magazines, you know, but it's best for families, best for retirement, best small town, best, you know. Every time I read one of those, of course, I send it to all my friends and laugh at them, But I've wondered if that's produced any kind of traction with drawing those good non-location dependent income people, and whether that's been a focus of attention to try to draw those people.
I'll just answer that briefly and move on to the question. Sure. But I think most of the reports that we received are anecdotal. We haven't done any deep data dives on the job mix and how that skews towards remote or non-remote working.
Okay.
I do hear more stories of companies and businesses that have remote employees. We do have an entrepreneur center in downtown Paso Robles, which is full of people that are working
great to
in
hear.
that location.
Okay.
And the city is banking on that being sort of a growth sector.
Okay.
We're working with the city of Atascadero to put together a broadband access strategy to make sure that we have a robust internet presence so that companies that do want to capitalize on that shift will have that opportunity here. So thank you for that question.
Sure.
Mr. Gregory.
I just want to thank you for throwing your hat in the ring. And it's interesting that you're taking over for Maria Garcia, who is basically working full-time on the very thing you want to do. And
I've not had the pleasure of meeting her, but I think that's in my future.
I think you should meet with her because she's got a lot of good ideas. But I just want to thank you for applying, and you have a tremendous experience in your lifetime. So thank you.
Mr. Hammond?
Just say thank you to Rick for applying and your willingness to serve. I think you're going to make a great role.
Yeah. Mr. Strong?
Yep, there we go. Rick, thank you also. I hope we stay in touch. I think I can give you a lot of information historically.
That would be my pleasure.
And I would look forward to having a longer-term relationship.
Any closing comments for us?
No, my goal was to come, learn, and see what kind of ways I might be of service to this community, and it sounds like there are possibilities for further discussions. And
There are many. We thank you very much for your interest in wanting to be a part of the community and coming forward to explore this possibility. Thank you.
And I appreciate your all's endurance while you sit through 4 of us here. I'm sure that it's taken a little longer than my want. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
again.
sir.
And a pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you. And I hope you can grab my card, or if you stick around long enough, I'll get you one.
So that concludes our interviews. Are we comfortable continuing on with no further break?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so our options tonight, as I understand them, are to deliberate upon the interviews that we've made this evening, make a selection if possible, and if it's the council's pleasure, we are prepared to swear in someone to fill this unfinished term this evening. So who would like to start off with conversation?
Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, Mr. Gregory.
Do we need to take public comment before we start this?
No, as I said before, tonight we took public comment prior to the interviews.
Okay, got it. Okay, go ahead.
So seeing no one jump to the front, I will. I think we had 4 excellent applicants. I'm so happy to see these people come forward, and obviously only one will be selected to fill this interim role moving into the next term on the council. But I think any one of these people, if they were running for election, would make excellent candidates, and I want to make sure that they understand that we really value their input and their applications, and hopefully will continue to be involved in the city in any way possible, because they certainly add to the value of our community. That being said, I think as someone who has sort of kind of lived through this before, because in 1987, I was interviewed by a city council to fill in the term of a council person who had stepped down. At that time, I was selected, and 10 months later, I ran for a term of my own. Of course, at the time I was selected, nobody knew if I was going to run or not. But so I've been through this before from the other side of the dais. And I think when comparing all of the responses that we have tonight, that I think what would probably be in the best interest of our citizens would to take into consideration the fact that Mr. Bausch, who is running unopposed in District 2 and will be seated as a council person, barring any unforeseen incident, that it would be to the city's benefit if we got him on here as quickly as possible, got him up to speed, so that we don't have any sort of awkward transition at the end of 3 months. If at the time that we were considering filling Maria's spot, we were in the situation we are right now, knowing that Chris was going to run unopposed, I think probably we would not have gone through the exercise tonight. But we didn't know that at the time, so we took the best decision, course that we could at the time. But those would be my thoughts on the issue. Mr. Strong?
Well, I would agree with you, and for another reason, and that is the League of Cities annual conference coming up that has 2 training sessions that are required by law within very short order of taking office. And that could be get him into the position and really up to speed a lot quicker, which otherwise you'd have to wait a full year before he would have that kind of available conferences ready at the state level.
Don't they have a new council member orientation in January, I believe?
Well, that's a new member orientation to the league, but if you read the agenda for down there, there are 2 sessions, one on
Ethics.
I forget which 2 they are, but both of them are ones we're required to have.
Ethics and
the other one is, on
Harassment. Yeah.
harassment. So both of those are available as sessions down in Long Beach, provided he can.
That's a question maybe for staff too. Whoever we do seat, would they have to be basically brought up to speed on those, or would they have a grace period, I guess, to be able to? I mean, we just went through our re-up training, and I'm just curious how that would sit with somebody that's going to be a temporary 3-4 months.
We would work with HR and our legal experts to make sure, our statutory requirements and timeframes. Typically, even if we don't have an in-person class, there's online classes that will suffice for those. And it also might be that coming from another board, he's already accomplished some of this training that might qualify, but we'd have to vet and verify that information.
Yeah, I would imagine both the.
I just saw it as just a plus on the whole thing.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, obviously, Mr. Bausch and Mr. Boyd clearly probably already have that on board with regard to requirements because they serve in the public office.
Mr. Boyd would definitely.
Yeah, I was kind of, thinking that certainly we're going to see more of Chris, no question, I think. But I was also thinking it might be nice to have another interim, another somebody that might bring a fresh aspect or different view that hasn't been really in a public position like this. Maybe, and I'm going to pull Chris and Rick out of this because I think Rick had a lot of good things, but he's not really, in my opinion, been here long enough to maybe understand what Paso Robles is really. The history on it, and that's what I kind of look for is, how much back history does the individual have? And so I'm thinking, one of the two of Keith Boyd or Lars Jorgensen, one of those two, I think would be something we could entertain as an interim, because again, certainly Chris is going to be finishing up his duties on the school board in the next few months. And then, by the way, when do you come off of the school board? I mean, is there a date? 2024. So you had 2 more years. Got it. Okay. I never asked that question, but anyway, that was my thought is, as an interim, maybe a fresh voice, something different, maybe entertaining those two.
Steve?
Well, I was a little surprised too to have Chris here tonight, which has been good, but I'm sort of up in the air actually. It'd be nice to have Chris here too, but we have a fresh perspective. It's not a negative thing, in my opinion, between Lars and Keith over there. So should we just take a stab at a motion, John? Is there somebody you want to try and see how it works?
Well, I mean, it's a discussion point. Yeah. I mean, I want to hear what the rest of you think too. I mean, is it something that
I'm coming at it just strictly from a practical point of view. I mean, I agree with the fresh idea thing. I think those folks are going to remain involved. We're going to get those fresh ideas. I certainly hope they plug into advisory committees and other opportunities. But it just seems to me a matter of convenience, since we anticipate that Chris is going to be on the council in 3 months anyway, that the quicker he gets up to speed, the quicker he gets on board with staff, becomes comfortable with that position, the better shape we're going to be in for January. And it's just a matter of convenience. It's not a matter of, I think this person is better qualified than that person. I think that's what it is for me.
Well, what I like about Chris is that he's already been in the trenches, so to speak, with regard to public office and certainly knows a lot about what goes on in our lives too. I'm good with, Chris, no question. But I just wanted, like I said, if we're going to have him for sure, it sounds like we will. Hopefully you'll have me too. So the point is, we're kind of running lame duck here without anybody running against us. But, you never know. Maybe somebody's going to, put a lot
Do
more
right in.
right in anything else. Anyway, to never take it for granted. And I don't think Chris does either. But like I said, I just thought it was an opportunity, fresh view to, I really enjoyed, having Keith come up. Since he's been in town, he's really gotten engaged with the Elks, and we see him a lot there, and he's really getting into Paso Robles, so to speak. I think his perspective in the law enforcement world would be a nice freshness, but we also have Ty, who spent so many years there too, and so it's one of those things where I think actually I thought maybe Lars, coming from the business side, might be good to have him sit and nothing else, he'll be a good testimony about what a councilman has to go through. Going back into the
Do you really want to do that to him?
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, it's one of those things, and I do have with Keith. I'm a little concerned, about maybe the potential conflicts or something there because of the two cities, and again, I really appreciate his willingness to serve. I would like to, if I could, make a motion for Lars to see where it goes. So I would like to make a motion that we approve Lars Jorgensen for the interim till, what's the end date on this, Ty? December 1st. That would.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilman Hammond, second by Councilman Gregory. Any further discussion? The only further discussion I want to make is that I think it is a matter of convenience. I think all these folks are qualified and their motivations are pure, and any one of them would make a great candidate.
And my only comment would be, I hate voting anyone down, but realistically, I'm hoping that he will get involved in the city in other ways and learn more about exactly what we're doing that way before he steps up to this spot.
So if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Councilman Hammond,
Aye.
Councilman Gregory,
Aye.
Councilman Strong,
No,
Mayor Martin.
And respectfully, I will vote no. Is there another motion?
Mr. Mayor, I will move that we appoint Chris Spausch.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Strong, second by Councilman Gregory. Do we have further discussion? I think the previous comments stand for everyone. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Gregory.
Strong first.
Strong.
Oh, excuse me, Strong.
Aye.
Thank you. Then Councilman Gregory.
Aye.
Okay. Councilman Hammond.
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
And again, respectfully, I vote aye. The decision is 4-0. I assume that it is the council's desire to do a swearing in this evening.
Yes.
If possible.
We are ready to do that.
We stayed up late for this, so he's going to stand up with us.
Mr. Bosch, congratulations and condolences.
And our thank you to everybody,
Yes,
and
thank
hope
you
you
all.
stay involved, please. You have so much to offer.
Approve the resolution.
So, Council, just a note for the record. So with the motion to approve, that was approved 4-0. And with that decision, I'm reading into the record that would approve the resolution for the oath of office, and that we're moving forward now with a swearing in, which is permissible.
That was my intention.
Yes,
That's my motion.
and so we can either have Jessica do the swearing in, or Mayor Martin can do the swearing in under state statute.
You got the oath? I'll do it.
Jessica, got the oath?
One moment. I'm just making some notes for the record.
And I think we should make sure the mic.
Let me try.
Oh, I'm good with it.
We should have ever had this thing.
So them after me. Some folks don't like to say swear. You can say affirm. Okay. I was going to read the whole thing through and ask you. So if you would raise your right hand, please. I state your name.
I, Chris Bausch,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will solemnly defend,
Support and defend
support, and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance
That I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United
to
States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely,
That I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
And I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
I do further swear
I do further swear
that in all matters concerning the city,
that in all matters concerning the city,
I shall strive to promote the common good,
I will strive to promote the common good,
to uphold the public trust,
to uphold the public trust,
without fear or favor of any person,
without fear or favor of any person,
and to leave the city
and to leave the city
greater and better than it was when entrusted to me.
greater or better than when the city was entrusted to me.
Congratulations. Welcome to the Paso Robles City Council.
I want to say thank you very much to everybody that encouraged me to run for the office in the November election. For those who suggested I might want to consider running for the interim position, I would really like to thank Councilwoman Garcia for all of her hard work. I thought I had a phone number for her. I really need to reach out to her. So, Maria, if you're listening, please reach out to me. We need to go have coffee and talk about what you've done and how I can help carry that on. Paso Robles is an amazing city. It's filled with great people, great institutions. I will do everything I can to make sure that we continue to grow, to support each other, and most importantly, to listen to one another.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome aboard.
Oh, we need to adjourn the meeting.
Was he seated now?
Hey, Chris,
We have to adjourn.
you need to come up and help adjourn the meeting. You have one more duty.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, so it's been a great evening. It's been a great display of some very quality people who have displayed their interest and care for our community. We're deeply grateful, and the community is deeply grateful. And everything we said is absolutely true. We want to see your faces involved in the city from this point forward. So please don't go away. Thank you. Do we have any other business before the council tonight? Very good. Upcoming, we have the Airport Commission meeting on Thursday, August 25th at 6:30 p.m. Development Review Committee meeting Monday, August 29th at 3:30 p.m. We have September 6th City Council meeting has been canceled because we have our conference down south. Library Board of Trustees meeting Thursday, September 8th at 9 a.m. Senior Citizen Advisory Commission meeting Monday, September 12th, 1:30 p.m. Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting Monday, September 12th, 4 p.m. Planning Commission meeting Tuesday, September 13th at 6:30 p.m. And our next City Council meeting will be Tuesday, September 20th at 6:30 p.m. There being no further business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I think we should let Mr. Bausch do that.
Yes.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Bausch, seconded by Councilman Gregory to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you all.